Tensions between the Philippines and China are on the rise again after the detection of a Chinese structure in Scarborough Shoal. Good morning, I'm Gerg Cahilles, sitting in for attorney Karen Jimeno, and this is At the Forefront. The Philippines must formally oppose China's high seas claim before the year ends. Not doing so would mean Manila agrees with this claim. That's according to former Supreme Court Associate Justice Antonio Carpio. Meanwhile, the Philippine government has asked China to remove its floating structure in Scarborough Shoal. Let's tackle these issues. We'll be speaking with Justice Carpio. Good morning, Justice Carpio.
Good morning, George. Good morning to our viewers.
Well, firstly, let's talk about the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction Agreement. What is this all about, Justice, and why is it important for the Philippines?
Well, this is an agreement to regulate the waters beyond national jurisdiction. Beyond national jurisdiction. That means beyond the exclusive economic zone, that area are the high seas. And it's largely unregulated until the High Seas Treaty came about.
Okay.
So, because what happens in the high seas affect also the exclusive economic zone. If the fish stock in the high seas are depleted because of unregulated fishing, that will affect also the fish in the EEZ because the fish just crisscross. There's no hard border.
Yeah.
You don't need a passport.
Oo.
So, that has to be regulated now because the high seas contain a lot of living organisms that are useful for medicine, for food, for cosmetics, and other things. And so the world finally decided to regulate that. And it's really very important because the high seas comprise about half of the area of the world. So it's mind-boggling that this has been unregulated for a long time.
For a long time. Para po ba itong Code of Conduct?
This is really an implementation of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea.
Okay.
Because this treaty was adopted under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea to implement that objective of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea to preserve and protect the marine ecosystem in the entire world. No?
So, in essence, this is a good agreement.
Very good agreement because it will preserve for humankind, for posterity, the living resources in that area because, you know, they said that life started in the oceans and life could die in the oceans because without living organisms in the oceans, how can we survive?
So, where is the problem right now? Why do we need to oppose China's claim with this agreement?
Because under the agreement, the parties must ratify. We ratified. And if you ratify, you can make a declaration, an observation. And China made a declaration that the High Seas Treaty will not apply to areas where there are disputes in the sea. That means the South China Sea. And will not apply to areas that are under the sovereignty, sovereign rights, and jurisdiction of China. And China claims jurisdiction over all the waters within the 10-dash line.
Okay.
So China is saying this treaty that we just ratified does not apply to the South China Sea. But everyone in the world knows there are high seas in the South China Sea because about a quarter of the South China Sea are high seas. So China is saying, yes, we agree with the High Seas Treaty, but it will not apply to us.
Are you trying to tell us, Justice Carpio, that China is trying to circumvent the earlier ruling of the arbitral court?
The arbitral court already said we have an exclusive economic zone up to 200 nautical mile, and beyond that are the high seas. China lost that. There are high seas. But China now is saying that there are no high seas because everything within the 10-dash line fall under our jurisdiction. Remember, the treaty says the title, Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction.
Okay.
China said, No, these waters are under our jurisdiction, so it will not apply. So, well, there is a doctrine in international law that that's called the doctrine of acquiescence. If a state makes a claim that will prejudice the other states, like China will claim our EEZ, and if we do not protest within a reasonable time, we are deemed to have impliedly consented to that claim. So we have to protest. China made that declaration December 2025. Up to now, we have not protested.
Opo. It's been 6 months. But,
6 months.
And you stressed that the Philippines must file an objection to China's claims by December 2026. Why is that important?
Well, because there is no period prescribed under international law when to protest. So you follow the reasonable period. So what is a reasonable period? Well, there are cases beyond 1 year, maybe within 2 years, but we have to play this safe. So to play safe, let us protest within 1 year. Why do we delay it? We don't gain anything to delay it.
After all, it's ours.
After all, it's ours. So, but we have not filed, and nobody's talking about filing. So we have to put pressure on the government, on the DFA. Please do not sleep on the job. Just file a protest because you imagine we will lose our exclusive economic zone in the West Philippine Sea is larger than our total land area. Our total land area is about, if you put all our islands together, it's about 300,000 square meters, square kilometers, 300,000 square kilometers. Our EEZ in the West Philippines is larger than that. And we will lose that because we slept on the job.
Why do you think the DFA is not acting on this matter?
I really don't know because any reasonable person would file a protest right away. I remember when Vietnam and Malaysia filed their extended continental shelf claim, the following day China filed a counter protest. I mean, they did not wait for 2 days. The following day they filed it because they know if you don't act, you are deemed to have impliedly consented. And we have, the way I look at it, we have to do it within 1 year.
Okay.
Because beyond that, China will say, oh, you slept on your rights already 1 year na. So let's play it safe because it's so important. You're talking here of an area larger than our total land area. All the fish, oil, and gas and other mineral resources belong to us. Exclusive economic zone, which means that zone, all the economic resources there belong to us.
As far as you know, Justice, did other countries already filed petitions? Did they file petitions
No, not
before?
yet. None. I think we should be the first because we're aside from Vietnam and Malaysia and Indonesia, we're the most affected. I mean, imagine losing an area larger than our total land area in maritime areas, no?
Well, I'm wondering po, Justice, because primarily, as you mentioned, this is like an environmental protection law. But seems like it's going to be a new legal battle for the Philippines to contest what China is claiming right now.
Yeah, we have to do it. It's the obligation of all government officials to do it. Otherwise, it's not only dereliction of duty. I will say this is treason already. Although there is no such crime as treason during peacetime, but this is the equivalent of treason. I mean, you know that you have to protest. You deliberately do not protest, and you lose an area larger than our total land area. It's unforgivable.
Who is committing dereliction of duty or
all
treason?
those who are required to protest? The DFA people should start the protest. And the president should, being the chief architect of foreign policy, this involves foreign policy, should instruct the DFA, do it now.
Now, the government has found a flotilla at the Scarborough Shoal. What must be done about that? But before you answer that, Justice Carpio, at the forefront, we'll be back after a short break. Welcome back at the forefront. We continue our conversation with former Supreme Court Associate Justice Antonio Carpio. Now, Justice Carpio, in an interview here on BNC, maritime expert Ray Powell warned that the small Chinese structure on Scarborough Shoal may eventually lead to a man-made island similar to what happened in Mischief Reef. Do you agree?
I agree completely.
Why?
Because what happened in Mischief Reef was China just put up this fisherman shelter, and the Chinese said, oh, it's only for our fishermen. In case of a storm, they have some place to shelter. And they also promised President Obama, we will not militarize those islands that we've built. What happens now? Mischief Reef now is an air and naval base with a 3-kilometer runway. You can, any Chinese aircraft or bomber or tanker can land and take off there because it's a very long runway. Even a shuttle, a space shuttle can land there. So they just fooled the world. They said, it's just for the shelter of our fishermen. Now it's a military base with barracks, with radars, with anti-ship missiles, anti-aircraft missiles. Now they're doing the same. This same playbook of China. Because remember, a few months ago, China declared a nature reserve on Scarborough Shoal. And you look at it, it's quite harmless. It's a nature reserve. But to operate a nature reserve, you need to monitor it. That monitoring could be a manned monitoring
Station.
And that is the purpose of this barge. It's just a small barge, 30 meter by 30 meter, but it's enough to house some people there. So it will become a manned observation point. And from there, it will be like the fisherman's shelter. It will they will expand it into an air and naval base. And remember, China built a huge floating dock, and they just completed it a few months ago, and everybody was saying China would bring that to Scarborough Shoal and anchor it there. Instead of building an artificial island, they will anchor a huge floating dock. But it turns out they brought it to the Paracells. But at any time, they can bring it.
Yes,
and
because that's a movable device.
Yeah, movable device. So I think this is the soft approach of China. Their usual strategy is to, so there will be no uproar. They brought this 30 by 30 meter floating dock, but there is a big one waiting, a huge one.
It is more like testing the waters right now.
Yes, just to acclimatize it. I mean, so that, there was no uproar, so they will bring the bigger one now.
But Justice, the approach of the Philippine... So, go ahead.
So this will really violate the 2002 Declaration of Conduct of the Parties, where all those who signed, ASEAN and China, signed that agreement that they will not occupy unoccupied features as of 2002. And Scarborough Shoal has not been occupied. That's why they did not occupy it because of that agreement. So they probably thought we can justify a floating dock because that is not something permanent.
Yes.
So they would say, oh, we're not occupying it permanently.
Again, circumventing,
circumventing
the agreement.
Very soft approach, but it will lead to that. It will become a permanent base.
But the approach of the Philippine government here is through diplomatic channels. In fact, the government is asking China to remove that floating device. Can't the Philippines do it on its own, removing that floating device right there? Because after all, it's part of our territory.
Well, then that will mean that there will be a clash.
Okay.
Because the Chinese will physically prevent us from taking out that floating dock there. So the question really is, what can we do about it?
Yes. What can we do, Justice?
Yeah, well, there are low-hanging fruits. The extended continental shelf claim in the western side of Palawan, that's ripe for arbitration because Malaysia and Indonesia, and Vietnam file a claim. China oppose it, we oppose it, we file our own claim, China oppose it, Vietnam and Malaysia oppose it. So under the rules of the UN Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf, they will not act on it because there are oppositions. The parties should negotiate directly or bring it to arbitration. Of course, negotiation is out of the question because China will never agree. So it's time to bring this to arbitration. And fortunately, under UNCLOS, China is compelled to submit this to arbitration, just like in the arbitration of The Hague. So we should do that. And then also, in the High Seas Treaty, we should protest. Because if we don't do anything, China will say, oh, they're not, there's no response. Let's continue building on Scarborough Shoal. There has to be a penalty for China building on Scarborough Shoal.
No, there are U.S. reports that are saying that U.S. intelligence agencies are monitoring the developments sa Scarborough Shoal. What do you think the U.S. role here, or what can they do?
Well, during the time of President Obama, China sent dredgers to Scarborough Shoal. Those dredgers were monitored by satellites, and Obama told President Xi there will be severe consequences if you proceed to dredge Scarborough Shoal, and the dredgers turned back. I do not know if the U.S. will be as forceful now, because at that time there was a G21 meeting in China, and President Xi didn't want to disrupt that with an incident on Scarborough Shoal. But you can see that China's plan is really to build on Scarborough Shoal, and they're restarting again with that declaration of a marine nature park, because to operate a marine nature park, you need a monitoring station. And that small 30 by 30 meter floating dock, that will become the monitoring station. That will grow later into a huge floating dock.
But do you think, Justice, sending Coast Guard ships, Philippine Coast Guard ships nearby Scarborough Shoal will deter possible activities of China in the area?
Well, it will mean that China will bring their Coast Guard ships and they will bomb each other. That will be the case. So I think we have to look for pressure points, and we have to also inform the U.S. that that is Philippine territory, because the U.S. recognized that as part of Philippine territory in their own maps of the Philippines. And if China will build on that, but we have to do our part, because under the Mutual Defense Treaty, the treaty can be invoked only if there is an armed attack.
Okay.
So if we do nothing, there is no armed attack, the U.S. will not be obliged to help us.
Well, quickly, Justice, si Defense Secretary Gibo Teodoro was banned by China, including his relatives. What is your reaction to that, and how the Philippine government is reacting?
We have to retaliate. In the same manner, the Philippines should ban also the counterpart of Gibo Teodoro, the defense secretary or defense minister of China. It has to be tit for tat. Otherwise, if we just protest, as the DFA has done now, they just protested, that will intimidate and silence all other government officials. They will not talk anymore because they will be banned also. Their families will be banned, and the government doesn't do anything to retaliate. So there has to be a retaliation that's done by other countries. If you expel our ambassador, we expel your ambassador. That should be tit for tat. That should be automatic.
Why do you think the Philippine government is not doing that?
I don't know. Maybe they don't want to displease China. But if you don't displease China, you don't retaliate, China will keep on pressing you.
And that's...
And that will intimidate all other government officials of the Philippines. Why will they speak out now when the government will not retaliate, will not defend them, will not also do the same thing to China?
All right. Well, Justice Carpio, Thank you very much for your time. I wish we have more time to discuss this, but thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you to our viewers.
Concerned government agencies must remain vigilant as China continues to encroach into Philippine territorial waters. We must do whatever it takes to prevent Beijing from forming another man-made island within Philippine territory. Be informed, be insightful of the news. I'm Gerg Cahilles. Always stay at the forefront.